He had fame, fortune, and charisma that made the whole of Hollywood bow until it couldn't handle him anymore. This is the story of how Charlie Sheen, the guy from 2.5 Men, went from being the most loved to being literally nothing. Subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories like this. The Golden Child of Hollywood. Before all the erupted chaos, there was a golden boy born into Hollywood royalty. This guy is Carlos Irwin Estevez, better known as Charlie Sheen, and since his birth, he was destined for the spotlight. Not only was he the brother of Emilio Estevez, a very well-known filmmaker and actor, but also the son of the legendary actor, Martin Sheen, who was in movies like Apocalypse Now. In other words, Charlie's future seemed written way before he could even walk on a set, or even when he was in his mother's tummy. Growing up around film crews and famous people, he absorbed the art of performance like it was oxygen to him. To Charlie, acting was reality, and reality was acting. Yet beneath that charm and confidence that he garnered as a kid, there was always something brewing inside him. It was a hunger not just to act, but to live louder than anyone else. By the time he hit his 20s, Charlie was already one of the most promising young stars in America. He went on with films like Platoon and Wall Street. There, he proved that he wasn't just another Hollywood brat, but he was a rising talent. Looking back at the Platoon movie, we see that it was the face of the disillusioned soldier and a role that ignited his fame. Wall Street made him an emblem of greed and ambition. Well, not literally, but just in the role. Critics hailed him as the next big thing, and the directors already wanted him. Studios trusted the Hollywood Golden Spoon child, and the industry believed he'd be the next Robert De Niro or the next Nicholson. But what they didn't know was that they would be up for a very interesting roller coaster of inconsistencies. Charlie Sheen is the actor of a generation, but fame doesn't elevate you. It tests you and amplifies who you really are. For Sheen, fame tested him repeatedly during his lifetime till there was nothing left for him to do anymore. By the early 90s, Sheen had everything: money, fame, and power. For him, it wasn't enough. Charlie Sheen craved chaos the way we crave oxygen when we're at an elevation. Insiders in Hollywood revealed his endless nights, explosive parties, and his unapologetic indulgence in every vice imaginable.
What was partying with Charlie Sheen like in the 90s?
Let me assure you, anything that you think you did, we took it above that level. We did some freaky stuff, I'm gonna say, and nothing weird, but freaky, all right, good.
In other words, Charlie became a symbol of success with excess, the embodiment of everything intoxicating about fame. And for Charlie, it wasn't even an act. The line between the man and the myth began to blur at this point, but still, the guy moved through Hollywood's elite like a storm, charming everyone and burning bridges just as quickly. Very early, the world realized that Charlie was magnetic, unpredictable, and unfiltered. There was a time when Charlie was also seen as untouchable, but every storm hits land eventually, and the same thing happened with Charlie. We know that Hollywood thrives on control, image, marketability, and compliance. Charlie Sheen represented everything opposite. He was raw, unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unfiltered. On film sets, he could be brilliant one day and a nightmare the next. Stories also spread about his lateness, his outbursts, his drug binges that lasted for days. Yet, somehow, he still delivered performances the directors could never ignore. Simply put, the work ethic was insane. Despite all his fame, even Charlie's former crack dealer thought the star wasn't going to survive.
I was Charlie's crack dealer. It was so crazy to the point where I didn't think he was going to live. He was smoking a lot of crack and drinking a lot of tequila.
By the time 2.5 Men premiered in 2003, Charlie Sheen had reinvented himself as the lovable rogue. The show was a phenomenon, and it also became the most watched comedy in America, making Sheen the highest paid actor on TV. He was getting a whopping $2 million per episode, so that amount of money would make you go crazy in one way or another. But, you know, when that happened, we all thought that maybe Charlie had finally tamed the chaos, but no one knew that the fire never went out. It was just suppressed thanks to a plethora of drugs that he was doing. Fired from 2.5 Men. In 2011, the mask finally shattered. After a public beef with the show's creator, Chuck Lorre, Sheen was fired, and he responded in a very controversial way that would change his whole life. Following that, It was one of the most infamous meltdowns in pop culture history.
Rotting dog shit. The fermented puke that is your viscera. Can you smell the lies? Can you smell the carnage you've created? Can you smell the imposter living within?
He appeared in interviews with glazed eyes and maniacal energy, declaring himself a warlock with tiger blood. He was often found doing drugs, or at least under the influence of drugs, which became a viral sensation overnight. But amidst all his suffering, the internet laughed, the media loved it, and Hollywood was in shock. To some, it was nothing more than a performance art, something that Jim Carrey would do, while to others, the visible collapse of a man who had been burning too bright for too long just happened. In between, Charlie Sheen surrounded himself with what he called his goddesses and his family. These are two live-in companions who symbolized his rebellion against the convention.
Sheen calls them his goddesses, and their exploits have been fodder for print, TV, and online tabloids around the world.
But in fancy words, these are basically Sheen's girlfriend. And this is the guy who got divorced with 4 children, trying to live his best life, or in his delusions. To many people, this was just weird. Having 2 girlfriends at once living in your house while you have children feels morally wrong. Rumors also surfaced about his legendary exploits. At one point, Charlie claimed to have slept with tens of thousands of women, even whispering that the number was a whopping 47,000. And recently, when Mike from the Impulsive podcast confronted Charlie Sheen about his exploits, here's what he had to say.
It wasn't as compiled or as condensed as you just laid it out. It was more about, navigating, encountering each situation scenario as they presented themselves, and based on what the headspace was going into it was kind of what that drove, I think, the results I was looking for.
We can say that he's the master of answering without actually answering the question. But he didn't deny whether he slept with such a number or agreed, which is why that seems more like a rumor. Hollywood had built him to be larger than life himself, and Charlie just wanted to try everything he could in his life. Every drug, every woman, from every country, every single culture visited, and we can just say that this guy was high on life with actual tiger blood running through his veins. And if you enjoyed our video so far, make sure to subscribe to get the latest Hollywood drama delivered to you. The media circus. After Charlie had been through so many controversies, every network wanted a piece of his spectacle. Late-night shows joked about him. Morning talk shows debated him. News anchors also analyzed his mental state, like everyone was a psychiatrist. But what few realized was that Sheen had become both the product and the punchline. His Twitter exploded overnight, garnering him millions of followers in mere days. His life also sold out instantly, with the audience not knowing whether they would get comedy or a complete drug meltdown. But when the cameras turned off, our guy went into isolation, surrounded by yes-men and his so-called goddesses. Beneath the swagger and the memes, there was nothing but absolute pain, paranoia, addiction, and lots of drugs. And behind all this was also a growing resentment towards the very system that had raised him high, only to laugh as the poor guy fell. His downfall started after 2.5 men fired him, but there were also a plethora of moments where Charlie Sheen was consumed by drugs, even on live shows, where he went crazy in rant mode. In many interviews, he was also seen smoking a joint, which is something that most actors would always avoid.
No, I'll pause it. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
One theory that a lot of people have is that even though Charlie Sheen was the next big actor of the generation or one of the biggest stars Hollywood had ever seen, he was battling with depression and a lot of ego behind the scenes. In one of the interviews, he even admitted that taking drugs and resorting to things like gambling or alcohol made him see things differently.
Violence, depression, and also his new war with CBS network executives who he claims are trying to destroy his family. The first question America wants to know, are you clean right now?
Look at me, duh. Drug tests don't lie.
When was the last time you did drugs?
Don't remember, don't care. Drug tests don't lie. The scoreboard doesn't lie.
You say you've cured yourself of addiction. You don't need Alcoholics Anonymous. How have you done that?
I closed my eyes and made it so with the power of my mind. I had to unload 22 years of fiction and just decided that I don't believe that anymore, and I know my own truth, and that's what I stand on right now.
What kind of fiction?
The fiction of AA. It's a silly book written by a broken down fool who was a plagiarist. They think it's a one-size-fits-all, but it didn't fit me, and I just got tired of subscribing to something with a 5% success rate. As a retired gambler, I need better odds than that, you know?
Did you turn to alcohol and other substances because you were bored?
No, I did that because they work.
Work to do what?
I just change the way you see things, change the way you feel.
While Charlie often says he got bored with what happened, it wasn't entirely the truth. The dude was 45 with a lot of kids, and you would wake up one day just to decide to do all those irresponsible things? Sounds like a real problem to us. But Hollywood couldn't handle Charlie Sheen anymore? To understand that, we must understand the unwritten rule of Hollywood: controlling the narrative. Hollywood doesn't fear talent. Actually, it loves talent, but it fears unpredictability. Sheen was the most unpredictable person they could meet. Studios couldn't insure him, and producers couldn't trust him. What's worse is that even the media, his biggest amplifier, began to tire of the chaos. At this point, Charlie Sheen became radioactive. The same executives who once praised him now avoided his calls. Even his friends distanced themselves. He wasn't just a fallen star for everyone, but rather, he was a huge branding risk. Just look at what happened between Charlie and his very good friend, Chuck Lorre.
Charlie, what are you gonna do now that 2.5 Men's done?
I ain't going to Disneyland, I'll tell you.
After being fired from the show by Warner Brothers, Charlie went to the building, climbed up with a machete, and had a meltdown that no one was expecting. In an industry that is obsessed with image, Sheen became the embodiment of everything that was unmarketable: addiction, defiance, and unfiltered truth. Hollywood had always sold the fantasy of rebellion, but never the reality. Charlie Sheen was that reality, and that's why they had to push him out. Now, don't get this wrong. Charlie had some serious issues, and while he seemed all messed up, there was some performance in his acts too. Behind the scenes. For all the madness, Charlie Sheen wasn't just self-destructing, he was performing too. The maniac interviews, the big statements like he had tiger blood in his system, they were half tragedy and part satire. Some even believe that Sheen knew exactly what he was doing, and he wanted to turn his downfall into a spectacle before the tabloids could. He even said that he's tired of pretending he's not special. It was basically narcissism, but yes, also a confession. Behind that tough bravado was a man drowning in expectation, the son of a Hollywood legend, the brother of a respected actor, and the father who was trying to hold on to love and legacy while Hollywood's competitive demons were bringing him down. The fame he chased in his youth had finally consumed him. In 2015, Sheen revealed he was HIV positive. This confession shook Hollywood, and there were no more laughs or memes this time. The announcement marked a shift, and now there was no manic energy in its place. Today, Charlie Sheen is as honest as he can be. He admitted his mistakes, apologized to his family, and promised sobriety. He called it a wake-up call. Sheen wasn't destroyed by Hollywood. Rather, he exposed the cold truth about being famous. And that's why, even today, the world cannot stop watching him. Who do you think is at fault in this whole narrative? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy videos like these, do give us a sub and ring the bell icon for more.